Good morning, students. So today we are going to start our next topic, and our next topic is the role of bioreactors in genetic engineering. So students, in yesterday's lecture we have studied about the various steps that we generally use in the process or technique of genetic engineering, which is also known as a recombinant DNA technology. As I have already discussed the steps, I have told you that when your gene of interest or your DNA of interest, which is now in the form of a recombinant DNA, it enters into the host organism. It takes some time, and after some time, it expresses itself. And as a result, a desired protein is formed in the host organism. So we have so many clones of our recombinant DNA in the host organism as the host organism produce different progeny cells. Now the next thing here is that our desired protein is now present in the host cell, but the rate of multiplication of those host organisms, they are not very rapid. So that's why the replicas, they are produced by the host organism of our recombinant DNA is also less. So in order to increase the number of host cells, we culture these host cells in a very large containers which are known as the bioreactors. So these bioreactors, they are actually the steel vessels. And here we allow to grow our host cells on tons of culture medium. All the optimum conditions that are required for the growth of these host cells, they are provided by us in vitro conditions, because we are doing these things in lab conditions. So that's why we arrange these bioreactors, which are made up of steel, very big vessels they are, and we pour tons of culture inside these bioreactors, and that contains important and essential nutrients. And here we put our host cells, which contains our desired protein. So as all the optimum conditions, optimum pH, temperature, aerobic conditions, whatever is needed by the host cell is given inside the bioreactor. So these host cells, they keep on multiplying. They multiply several times, and as a result, we obtain thousands of copies of our desired protein. So again and again, the host cell, they multiply, and as a result, progeny cells, as they increase in number, so there is also an increase in the number of our desired protein. Now here I have already discussed with you that the culture which we used in this bioreactor sometimes get contaminated. So, so in order to avoid this contamination, what we do, we generally used the continuous culture system. It is a kind of a vessel. From its one end, we remove the used culture medium, and from the other end, we pour the fresh culture medium. So in this way, we can avoid the contamination of the culture. So in this way, the host cells, they are in the active biosynthetic phase. So in this way, we obtain so many amount, or you can say concentration of our desired protein. Now we can isolate our desired proteins from these bioreactors. Before this, what we have to do, let's see the function and working of these bioreactors. So as I have already discussed, these bioreactors, they are actually the vessels, and they have the provision for cell cultivation under sterile conditions and control of the environmental conditions. So optimum pH, temperature, dissolved oxygen is there in the bioreactors. And later on, it is used for the cultivation of any type of living organism. It may be some microorganism, it may be plants or animal cells. We can provide aerobic and anaerobic conditions according to the need of the culturing organism. The bioreactors, they are commonly cylindrical in shape and ranging in size from liters to cubic meters, and are often made up of stainless steel, because stainless steel is an alloy which generally do not react with the culture medium. So here contamination can be avoided. Yes, student, here the diagram of the two types of bioreactors is visible on your screen. First is the simple stir tank bioreactor, and second one is the sparged straight tank bioreactor, through which sterile air bubbles are sparged. So in the simple stir tank bioreactor, we have one motor and that is attached with an agitator system. And here we have also provided the pH control system. So acid and basic type of pH can be controlled with the help of these knobs. We have a steam that is here provided in the broth or the culture for the purpose of sterilization. Foam breaker is also there, and there are flat blades of these agitators. So when we on this motor, the agitator, it keep on revolving, and as a result, in the culture or the broth medium, some bubbles of air is comes out, and in this way aerobic conditions they are created in the bioreactor. So here students, you can see the increased surface area for the oxygen transfer in the second type of bioreactor. So bubbles, they dramatically increase the oxygen transfer area. So in this way the host cell, they receive the aerobic condition and they show maximum growth, and so is the growth of our desired product. So in this way, these bioreactors, they play a significant role in the growth of and multiplication of host organisms, and so are of our desired product, which may be a drug, a protein, or any enzyme, whatever. Yes, student, in the last of topic of this chapter, I am going to tell you about the downstream process. As you know that from the bioreactors, we obtain thousands of our desired products, which may be in the form of drug, protein, enzymes, or maybe some other type. So these products which we obtain from these bioreactors, as they have completed their biosynthetic stage, still they have to undergo a series of processing before they become ready for marketing as a finished product. So here the process of downstream processing, it includes the various types of separation techniques and purification methods that we generally use in chemistry, and which are collectively known as the downstream process. So later on, when we pass our desired product through all of these purification and separation techniques, and we obtained our purified product at last, then we add suitable preservative because we have to maintain our product for a longer time. So we add the suitable preservatives to it. Yes, student, after adding preservatives, if our desired product is a drug, then it has to undergo the process of clinical trials. So many clinical trials, or you can say testing, is done with that product before it is launched in the market. And so for this purpose, we used different types of model organisms. It may be mice, rabbits, and monkeys. So we use different doses of our drug in a controlled fashion on these organisms and study the effects or the symptoms over these organisms. So when we find that our drug is a suitable drug, it is safe, then we launched it in the market under some particular brand name. And if it is an agrochemical, we do the different type of testing in the field by applying it on different crops and see what it cause, what kind of effect it cause over our crop plants, whether they increase the yield, whether they show resistant towards certain diseases or specific type of soil conditions, saline soil, acidic soil, whatever. Okay, student, after passing through strict quality control test, later on, it is the time to launch our product. So after the process of downstream processing, we launch our desired product, which may be any protein, enzyme, any drug. And in this way, at the last, we obtained a special type of product or desired product through this process of genetic engineering. So in this way, we have made so many important products which are now playing an important role for human welfare. So in the last, I want to conclude the chapter that biotechnology is a branch of biology that has done so many important things for human welfare. So that's all in today's lecture, students. In the upcoming lecture, we will start another chapter of biotechnology in which we study the various methods of biotechnology, and by applying this method, what kind of product we obtain to this branch of biology. So have a nice day, students. Thank you.